You know, in our modern world, we're basically told there's one rule for success. Go faster, be quicker, more immediate. But what if that core belief isn't just wrong, but actually dangerous? Today we're going to dive into something called the sovereign pace and figure out why.
I mean, listen to this quote. Speed is the most seductive lie in modern life. That really gets right to the heart of it, doesn't it? It reframes speed not as some kind of asset, but as a dangerous illusion. And that's really the core conflict we're going to unpack today. That huge gap between how we think about speed and what it actually does to us.
So why is this lie so seductive? I mean, why do we all fall for it? Well, it's pretty simple, really. We're taught from day one to see speed as competence, right? As intelligence, even as ambition. Moving fast looks like you're getting stuff done. And our culture, well, it praises and rewards that. But this is exactly where that illusion takes hold.
So, who craves speed the most? Well, the answer might surprise you. It's usually people who are desperate for a result, or people who are totally unclear on their direction, or, and this is a big one, people who feel like they have zero leverage. For them, speed feels like the only option they've got. It's a way of confusing motion with progress when you don't really have a solid strategy.
And this is the big pivot in how we need to think about this. Speed isn't power. Speed is exposure. Yeah, you heard that right. Instead of making you stronger, it actually makes you more vulnerable. So how on earth does that work? All right, let's really dismantle this myth of speed by looking at its hidden dangers. And we're not just talking about making a few mistakes here and there. Nope. We're talking about a fundamental increase in fragility, all caused by something called unexamined acceleration. Okay, so check out this logic. Think of it like a fragility chain. It's super simple, but also really profound. It goes like this. The faster you move, the less margin you have for error. And that lack of margin, that's what makes you fragile. You know, a small bump in the road that you could easily handle at a slower pace, well, at high speed, that same little bump can become a catastrophic failure.
So, what's the core problem with speed, like on a mechanical level? It's that it cuts you off from vital information. You're literally outrunning your own senses. You're moving so fast that the signals from your environment, and even from yourself, just can't keep up.
So what kind of signals are you missing? Well, for starters, you don't notice the small errors. You don't feel that gradual drift away from your original goal. You have no idea how those tiny mistakes are compounding into a massive problem. Speed creates this illusion of mastery, all because it's drowning out the very feedback that would be screaming at you, hey, you're losing control.
You know, we tend to think of failure as this big, sudden event, like a giant crash or an explosion. But that's rarely how it actually happens. Turns out most collapse is a quiet, slow process. Its compromises adding up, its shortcuts becoming habits, and speed, it just hides that whole process until it's way, way too late. The damage becomes structural before you even have a chance to see it. Okay, so if speed is exposure, then what's the alternative, right? Let's shift gears and look at a totally new paradigm. This is where we're going to redefine slowness, not as weakness or hesitation, but as a deliberate, strategic form of power.
First things first, let's be super clear about what we mean by strategic slowness. This isn't about being scared or hesitating. No, it's about deliberate timing. It's about choosing to act at the right moment with the right information for the right reasons.
And get this, the pause is a weapon. Just let that sink in for a second. A deliberate pause isn't passive at all. It's an active tool. It can totally destabilize manipulators who rely on pressuring you. It exposes weak arguments because it gives you time to actually spot the flaws. It can even force other people to reveal what they're really after, simply because you refuse to give them an immediate reaction. Here's the fundamental shift in perspective. It's pretty amazing. Fast people, they fixate on the very next move. That's it. But slow, strategic people, they see the entire sequence. You move from just thinking about short-term tactics to playing the long game with strategy. You go from just reacting to actually positioning yourself. You stop asking, what do I do right now? And you start asking, where is this whole path actually leading?
So what's the payoff here? What does all this strategic patience actually get you in the end? Let's take a look at the concrete, long-term benefits of adopting what's called the sovereign pace.
Okay, think about it. Fast-paced environments, they just don't have time for nuance, do they? So they end up rewarding the loud. They select for the appearance of competence. You know the type. People who project absolute certainty and charisma, who make these quick, decisive-sounding calls. And honestly, whether those calls are right or wrong often matters a lot less than the performance itself.
But a slower system, it's the total opposite. It rewards substance over style. It actually has time to value precision. It creates the space you need for patience, the kind of patience required to see real patterns emerge. This whole approach isn't about getting applause in the moment. It's about optimizing for survival and coherence over the long haul.
And this really gets to the core payoff. Think about fast gains, like a viral hit or a risky bet that pays off. They're like lightning, right? Super bright, but they're gone in a flash. They require constant energy and they decay really quickly. But slow gains, we're talking skills, trust, reputation. They're more like a river carving a canyon. They compound quietly, almost invisibly, and they become undeniably powerful over time.
And really, this is what it all comes down to. Real power does not rush. Think about it. That need to get a deal done right now, it just reveals dependence. But the ability to wait, to pause, that signals that you have other options, that you don't need this one thing to survive. And that is real power. Okay, so this all sounds great in theory, right? But how do we actually do this? Let's get practical for a minute and talk about how you can actually use this powerful tool in your own life and your work.
First off, let's be really clear about something. This whole philosophy is not anti-speed. It's anti-unexamined speed. There are absolutely times when moving fast is the right call. The whole key is knowing when.
So here are the conditions where you can hit the gas. Speed is your friend when a decision is easily reversible, or when the cost of waiting is actually higher than the cost of making a mistake. It's also fine for simple systems, or when you're operating in territory you know like the back of your hand. Real wisdom is just knowing when to apply which pace.
But slowing down your actions, that's only the first step. There's a second, and honestly much harder, slowdown, the internal one. You actually have to adjust your ambition, your expectations, and your timelines to match your new pace. If you don't, you end up with what's called burnout disguised as discipline, this punishing internal pace, even while your body is moving slowly.
Because at the end of the day, the goal isn't just to cross the finish line, it's to arrive intact. Real strength isn't about how fast you can sprint for 100 yards. It's about endurance. It's about long-term effectiveness.
And that leads us to this final, really powerful idea. Someone who's practicing this sovereign pace, they might not look flashy or super impressive on any given day, but their work isn't meant to be impressive in the moment. It's meant to be undeniable over time. And that right there is a whole new definition of power that's worth thinking about.